For my commemorative speech, I chose somebody who is a very good friend of mine. I learned very much about him from the time I was in the seventh grade till I graduated from high school my senior year. Now, for the past couple of years, our friendship hasn't been as close as it was before, mostly because I go to school 3 hours away from home, and I barely have a chance to see him except for when I'm at church. But the person I chose was my Sunday school teacher throughout high school and a little bit in middle school, and his name is Dr. Anderson. And for my first visual aid, I chose a picture of him, and this is him. I don't know if you can see it too well, but he has made a very big impact on my life. It's very hard to sum up all he has done in just a short 4 to 5 minute speech of how much he has done for me. But he's a very, very godly man. In fact, if anybody's ever asked me when I think of a godly man, who's the first person to come to my mind, immediately without thinking, he just comes to mind immediately. And throughout the first couple of years that I was in that Sunday school class, I took it for granted. And I never really understood what kind of godly example he was leading for us to follow until right around my junior year. And this is where that impact he made on me really expounded in my mind, and I understood what a great friendship I had with him. And when I was a junior in high school, I was wrestling with the fact that God was calling me into ministry. And obviously the thought of going to ministry, the first thing that goes to mind is there's not a whole lot of money to it, or it's very difficult, or working in a church isn't always going to be the same as working in a normal job in the business of some huge corporation. And there's always a thought of, well, what if I'm missing my calling? Or what if this is not exactly what God has called me to do? How do I make this decision that is so difficult to make at 18, 19 years old? And that's where my friendship really started to amount to something, was when at 18, 19, I'm so mature, I'm so young, I have so much to learn. And here this man is at 60 years old who has experienced life for many years, lost his mother at an early age, and has had so many negative things happen in his life, but yet he's taken all of that and turned it into something good for God's glory. And it just spoke to me more than words could ever hope to explain. And when I graduated from high school, which this is my second visual aid, I've showed y'all before, but it's this book called The Cost of Discipleship. And it's written by Dietrich Bonhoeffer. And he talks about costly grace, which is a grace that will cost man his life. And I've seen in his life how that will cost a man their own life, that they can't live for themselves, do the things that they want to do. And now he has just the most outermost joy or utmost joy that you could possibly have living for God rather than living for yourself. And how he's used that mentality to bring so many others to Christ. And in fact, one way that he does it is by this simple quote that he always uses. I don't know where he got it from. I guess he just came up with it himself. But it's based on the road you're traveling today. Where will you be when you get to where you're going? I have heard that quote for probably close to 8 years now. And for maybe 3 or 4 years, it took me to really understand what he was asking. He's not asking, where are you going to be, 20 years from now with your career, maybe with a family or anything of that nature. He's not asking about things on this earth. He's asking about your faith. What do you believe? Why do you believe it? And what result will come from that? And he's asking basically, why do you believe in God? Why do you claim to be a Christian? How do you proclaim to be a Christian by the way you live? And when I started to get that idea in my head, what he was really asking, it kind of helped me, I guess in a sense, understand why God was calling me into ministry, because of all things that have happened in my life, which I don't really have time to explain. But it kind of showed me, not necessarily the exact road to take, but in a sense it was showing me why God was calling me to ministry, that several things that happened in my life, and not only that, but some of those things that happened in my life that happened in his life as well. So it kind of gave us a common ground to really expound on with our friendship. And two verses he always really kind of insinuated in my mind, which I chose my Bible for my third visual aid, but because of the two verses, which are from Jeremiah 29:11, which is God telling us he knows the plans that are for our benefit, not to harm us, and Micah 6:8, which is telling people to live for God, basically saying that everything you do should be for God's glory, uh, that you should love mercy, that you should walk humbly with your God, and things also in that verse. But that's just a little bit about this guy that has done so much for me and for so many other people. And honestly, I don't have time to say thank you to someone who has done so much for me in just a short speech. But for someone who's done so much for me and has cared for me so much and has been such a great friend, honestly, the only thing I could ever say would be thank you. There's nothing I could do to repay the friendship for all that he's done for me.